because I can always remember when I came into this industry back in '92, the average life expectancy for a trainer
Mm-hmm.
in the training world was only like 2.5, 3 years. It was like,
Yep.
okay, it was a job right out of college. And then by 25, you were on to something else.
Yep.
Whereas in the late 17, 18, we got that up to about 7 or 8 years. So we started to see that it was a business. It
Mm-hmm.
truly was a business. People were making money at it. They were making a decent living.
Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. I am so excited for today because I'm having someone on the podcast who's been really a legend in this industry for a long time, a real role model to me and Mark Fisher. He's a general manager at Perform Better. It's Mr. Chris Poirier. How are you, my friend?
Michael, I'm very good. Thanks for that warm introduction, and yeah, they're very honored to be on.
Yeah, well, honestly, I mean, I got into the fitness industry late for someone who's been in it now for a long time. I didn't really start really knowing much about the fitness industry until 2011 when I started Mark Fisher Fitness with Mark Fisher. And at the time, one of my kind of earliest memories was Mark talking about Perform Better. It was Mark talking about the work you're doing, the summits he was going to, now that he's spoken at many of them many times now. And so it's always been a real guiding light for us, both the education piece, and of course, we've also always gotten all our equipment from you. And so Perform Better has really been kind of central to my fitness world. And so just thank you for all the great work you've all done, all the great work you continue to do. I'm so glad to finally have you on the podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure for me to be here, and like I said, thanks for having me. And
Yeah, let's
Mark
start
Fisher
with
Fitness has always been a great staple
yeah.
for us. I can remember Mark coming a long time and bringing the whole team up to the summits before he was speaking. It was a
Yep.
good time.
Yeah, 100%. I was one of them. One of the first times I came, it was because Mark was like, "We have to all go to this," and I was like, "All right, let's go." And it was a blast. It was a really always a great education experience for me and my team. So for people who maybe don't know Perform Better, if they listen to this podcast, they know who you are and what you do. But maybe just give us like the 10,000-foot view. What is Perform Better? What are you all focused on these days?
Sure. So Perform Better is we sell fitness equipment, rehabilitation equipment, and sports performance equipment.
Hmm.
Um, not necessarily in that order, but there's a lot of carryover between them, and I like to say we dabble in a little bit of education as well.
Yeah, well, I think you dabbling has been really a cornerstone to a lot of the industry's formal education, which is you do these summits throughout the year. You just had one recently. You want to just talk a little bit about how that went?
Sure, sure. We just finished up our 2025 summit series in
Hmm.
Providence, and I got to tell you, Mike, it's been a little difficult getting people back to live events since
I'm
COVID,
sure.
and
I'm sure.
completely understand with everything that's going on in webinars and all the information that's out there. But the seminars have always been a passion for us. It's always been a staple of who we are. And losing the numbers was sort of heartbreaking. But I knew they would come back. I knew there was a lot
Yeah.
of good reasons why people were coming to live events, and we did some very creative things, and we got a great group of speakers, and yeah, we dropped one of the summits this year. We dropped Orlando and just stuck with three of them, and we came to the commitment of let's get three back, and then we'll grow from there. And sure enough, we with the three, we attendance was up 25 to 30%. We're nearly
Wow.
back to our numbers that we were in the 90 percentile, which is a big jump over where we've been the last 3 years.
Yeah. Congratulations. Good for you. I'm so glad you all stuck it out because I know your seminars are such a kind of cornerstone of the year for so many people in the industry. They really look forward to going and learning and bringing their teams. And so the fact that you all stuck it out and continue to push to get more people in them, I think is really so critical. And we've seen the same trends with our, you've been to a few of our
Yeah.
our business of unicorns retreats. We've seen the same thing since COVID. It's gotten bigger and bigger, and more people, I
Yeah.
think, are ready to travel and get back to it again. And so good for you. I'm glad that those are going well. And I want to talk more about those in a second. But first, my first question for you is really about what it is you all do best, which is selling equipment. And so we have a lot of people on listen to this podcast that are just now thinking about opening up their first gym. There's a lot of people listening to this podcast opening up their second, third, fourth location. So over all the years, you've seen gym owners building out their gyms. Where do you see people kind of over or under invest in that process? Where do you think they should be spending more? Where do you think they should be spending less?
Yeah, it's funny you say this because I haven't answered this question in a long time, but people used to ask me this question all the time, and the one area that I think is the most noticeable in a gym is the flooring.
Yes.
So I always tell people, generally people underspend in a floor. They
Mm-hmm.
basically, they'll go really high end equipment. They'll make it nice, but then they'll go black or 10% speckled, which, it's 10% speckled looks like it's 100% black in like 3 years. You don't even see the speckles anymore. But that is where I tell people is if you don't have to go to the high end, but don't go to the low end. You want to be
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle to high end when you're spending on your gym, and you want it to be something that's attractive inside there, because that's the most noticeable. I've told people this for years, that you could just redo your flooring and add a vibrant color or something that's a little more upbeat, and you can keep the same equipment, and then people will come into the gym and they think you redid everything in the gym. They think the
Yep.
equipment's new and it's just the flooring. The
Yep.
flooring is new.
Yeah, I think it's a great answer. It makes a big difference. And that's something at Mark Fisher Fitness we really screwed up in those early years. We got some cheap ass flooring early, and then we finally came to you all and got the good stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's I think it's one of those things that people think they can just do it themselves and go cheap. And I think you're right. It's a mistake almost all the time. Yeah.
yeah,
So I
no,
mean,
no, definitely.
and any trends you've seen in equipment over the last since COVID, really, since people have been opening gyms back up again, any trends you've seen and changes to the kinds of equipment people are buying or prioritizing?
It's funny. There's been a bunch of changes coming, and they pretty much started right around 2017, 18 was the tech stuff. There's been a
Mm,
lot of technology driven stuff. More so, we see it in our sports performance line
yep,
when it really makes a difference. That fraction of an inch or that split second or something that's an athlete needs, where
it's really
whether
measuring
it's
performance. Yeah,
measuring performance and what they're measuring. Like the whole velocity based training has become so popular in that world, not so much in the fitness world, because
hmm,
I understand it's not really, you know we're in fitness, we're just trying to get people to move and getting people there, and getting them to work out is 90% of the workout
yep,
in today's fitness world.
you got
um,
it.
but I haven't seen, in the fitness world, we haven't seen too many equipment trends,
Hmm.
things that are changing. We're waiting for that next big, we're waiting for that. As we say, from 95 to 2005, there were a lot of different pieces of equipment that were implemented in,
Right.
from the kettlebell, the foam rollers, like things that are like staple, the mini bands, a lot of those things that are staples today in workouts. But we're not seeing that new product that
Yeah. Well,
is
taking
taking
the world by
the
storm.
next
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I think that, coming from someone whose primary job is to sell equipment, the message I'm hearing from you is that people are keeping it simple, and that's what we should be doing, right? Most,
Yeah.
most of us who work with, in functional training gyms, who work with the general population, right? Most of our job is just getting them to the gym and getting them to
Yeah.
move.
Yeah.
The equipment that's been serving us well for the last 10, 20 years is still the same equipment that will serve us well moving to the future. The exceptions, I think, like you said, are things like
Yeah.
sports performance, those kind of things where
Yeah.
technology can be really useful. I think that's really wise.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me switch gears. I want to go back to the education piece of what you all done, because I was adding it up, and I think you all have organized like hundreds of seminars at this point. I think you've had something like over 200 presenters, and you all have really leaned into having like education be part of your mission. So my question is this: over the years, you've seen a ton of people come to these summits. What separates the gyms that turn continuing education into like measurable results and revenue from the ones that leave these summits just kind of inspired, right? I'm not
Yeah.
saying there's anything wrong with inspiration, right? But we both know that people who come take lots of notes, they leave inspired, but they don't
Yeah.
actually do anything with the information. So what do you think separates the people who take that summit knowledge and really make something of it and the ones who leave and had a great experience, but don't really get any traction with the information?
Yeah. I see. For us, I think there's two types of people that get inspired at our summits.
Yeah.
I think there's the trainer that is, it's been a long year that's on the verge of burnout because it's not an easy life being a trainer. I
No.
mean, you have a client at 5 a.m. in 6 and 7, and then you may not have one till 11 and 12, and then you may not have one until 3 or 4. So it's a long day. It's a hard day for a trainer. And thankfully the industry has come up with better ways to accommodate that trainer in that way with working hours. But it is still a hard life. And we've always found, years ago, we were hearing this from attendees that were coming to our seminars every year. And one of the comments I kept hearing all the time, Michael, was, I'm coming to pick out that nugget. I'm learning one or two things, which is great. But I've heard so many times that I'm mainly coming to recharge my batteries.
Mm-hmm.
It's late summer. I'm burnt out. It was a long winter, a long spring. I sometimes question whether I want to stay in the industry as being a trainer or I just want a regular 9 to 5 job. And then that was some of the power that I started to hear about 20 years ago in them, of recharging the batteries. And I thought, you know what? That was something that was very, very important. And because I can always remember when I came into this industry back in 92, the average life expectancy for a trainer
Mm-hmm.
in the training world was only like 2.5, 3 years. It was like,
Yep.
okay, it was a job right out of college. And then by 25, you were on to something else.
Yep.
Whereas in the late 17, 18, we got that up to about 7 or 8 years. So we started to see that it was a business. It
Mm-hmm.
truly was a business. People were making money in it. They were making a decent living. They loved doing it because they got into it at one time, but usually the reasons they left were things that they weren't making enough money or they weren't, the hours, it was just too crazy of an hours with the way they were doing it. So I think there's been a lot that has gone into helping create that. But I think the energy of the summit or recharging their batteries, as I've been told by so many people, has been a really, really big part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a great point, Chris. The idea that, some people can come for the strategies and the tactics and
Yeah.
leave and have really clear action steps for what to do next. And some people come because they're recharging their batteries. Some people come because they're a little burned out. They're questioning, as we all do from time to time, is this really what I want to be doing? Is this the right lane for me? What's next? And just being surrounded by other people in the industry and seeing what they're doing can be enough to have you either keep going or maybe it is to make that decision that this isn't for you. But I think there's always something to be gained by being in a room of other people who do what you do all the time. There's just always a lesson to be learned. We like to say when
Oh,
people come to our retreats that we want you to treat everyone in the room as if they're both your teacher and your student, right? We
yeah.
want you to learn from everyone and we want you to share what you know. And when you're in that kind of environment, which I know your summits are, it's impossible to leave without some little nugget that's going to be helpful
Oh,
to
yeah.
you. Yeah.
I'm telling, and you just saying what you just said was what I've been stressing. It took me a couple years through COVID and up until about halfway through the summits last year. And what I really realized is, with the summits, when we're having tough time getting people back and trying to analyze, okay, what are they really about? Are they really about people getting here for the nuggets and stuff? But what I kept going back to was more of the event itself and
Yeah.
the networking that comes. And I've always said exactly what you said.
Yep.
At all my summits, I always say there's as many minds on the stage. I'm sorry, many minds out here sitting down in the audience as
Yep.
they're up on stage. Actually, there's more. There's 10 times of you out here sitting down listening to this. Like,
Yeah.
and so we encourage networking. And I thought that was going to be like, wow, we're going to be in a world without networking, without
Mm-hmm.
live events and people coming and meeting people and learning about their business and learning what hurt their business, helped their business.
Yeah.
I know for sure, and I'm sure you guys have this proof of this too, but I've known that when we went through COVID, all the guys that had a business relationship or had a business mentor were in a group. They were
Yes.
meeting monthly, talking about it.
Yes.
They all survived.
100%.
It's we
Yeah,
lost a
we,
third
we
of the
saw what
industry.
40% of people closed. We did certainly did
Yeah,
not have 30-40% closed in Unicorn Society. It was more
not
like 1%.
exactly. And I see
Yeah.
that across of all of the
Yeah.
groups, the business
Exactly.
groups, because and again, it's having that to fall back. The people that are trying to do it on their own,
Yep.
the wind blows are a little too hard, and sometimes they may be out of it. They may be out of
Yeah.
business next week or something, if
Yeah.
something happens to their business.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have a theory. This is maybe a little bit of the organizational psychologist nerd in me, but I'm going to say this anyway because I think it's relevant to our conversation. Which is, I think these days the word networking might be coming out of style. Right. I think
yeah,
when you and I talk about networking, I still talk a lot about networking.
yeah,
I think that's what we used to call people coming together and connecting. Which I think is still what we're doing in our retreats and our
yeah,
summits, right? So getting people together. But these days, I think the newer generations. Let me sound like an old man for a second. When they think about networking, one of the things they think of community building, and they think of what they get from networking is a sense of belonging. And I hear them using that language more than I hear them talking about networking. When I say networking, I see a
yeah,
lot of my younger gym owners kind of recoil. Like, I don't want networking. I don't want to
yeah,
stand around with a drink and have to like talk to strangers. When I say, okay, well, this is a community of people, you're going to really kind of build some community with these people. You're going to get together. You're going to ask each other questions and connect. And you're going to really feel like a sense of belonging. You're going to feel like you belong to this group. And it's a group of people who can support you through the ups and the downs and be there with you. Like, oh, well, I want to belong somewhere, right?
yeah,
I want to have a sense
yeah,
of belonging. Like, well, that's what we used to call networking, right? That
yeah,
community building and that feeling like you belong somewhere, having that group of people you can turn to when you have questions or you're stuck or you're feeling burnt out. That sense of belonging you get comes from networking, right?
yeah.
But I think there's like a change in language that's happening. I don't know if you
Yeah.
see that,
Oh,
but
100,
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
And in fact, we have a session at each summit, which is basically a Q&A session where we put
hmm,
three presenters for 75 minutes at a round table.
yep,
And anyone in the room can designate that time to go ask them anything they want for 75 minutes
great,
with any presenter they want that's at the event. We don't call it networking. We call it Q&A. But
yep.
basically it's exactly it. It's
That's
it's it's
exactly it.
strategy planning. It's
That's it.
relationship building.
Yes.
It's everything in there. You're right. The networking is a 70s 80s term that is
I listen.
it's
I'm still guilty of it. But when I see them on
yeah,
their faces, they like I see them recoil when I talk about the networking and I'm like, okay, well, how about we talk about connecting with your community? What if we talk
yeah,
about belonging? And they're like, oh, well, I want those things. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll use those words. So I
yeah,
just say that out there to all of us in the industry. We're really talking about the same things, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
networking was our way of building community and connecting and finding that support network and finding those thought partners that really help us when we're stuck. And so I'm glad that you all are making space for that kind of thing in your summits, as I know you always have. That's amazing.
yeah,
Let me switch gears a little bit. Let me talk a little bit because I still want to talk about summits. But one of the things that you all have done really well, and I've heard you talk about this on past podcasts, is as at some point or early on, you decided that part of your summits was going to be both hands-on kind of fitness knowledge and also business knowledge. You wanted to kind of embrace both at your summit. So my big picture question about that is, how do you think gym owners these days should think about balancing their continuing education on fitness knowledge and business knowledge? What should that look like for the kind of modern gym owner?
yeah. Well, the gym owner 100% sure because I've had so many and I don't know if you've heard me tell this story before. I've said it before, but it's always worth saying. I had a customer that would come to our summit for a couple of years, and we finally introduced a business presenter speaking into our events. Tom Plummer was the first one that we had at the
Yep.
event,
Great.
and he came for a couple of years and after about Tom's third year, it was somewhere around 2008, 9, he comes up to me and he says, I really got to apologize. He says, I haven't had the money to buy any equipment from you. He says, but now, with the help of your seminars and some of the business strategies that I've learned, my business is doing better and I can spend some
Mhm.
money this year. And I like, I feel embarrassed because I never really thought of it like at that way before. I always thought that we wanted a well balanced trainer because we knew owners were coming. But
Yeah.
when I heard the fact that I have more money to spend on equipment, I knew for
Hmm.
sure that business had to be a part of it because my goal is every gym owner makes a ton of money. Like that would be the best world case scenario is that they're making so much money they want to spend so much on equipment or they want to redo their gym every couple of years because they're
Yeah.
making
Open
so
more
much money. That's
locations.
it,
Yep.
it that exactly it. But that was the one that just the fire went off in the head and it was just like wow, this is, you know what, if gym owners can make more money,
Hmm.
we can sell more equipment because they're going to have more money, they're going to have more disposable income to spend and,
Hmm.
and and redo their gym every couple of years or redo their flooring every 10 years, not wait 20 years or 30 years because they're barely surviving, getting through. So that was the sort of the light bulb that turned on. At first we were doing business workshops, or we were doing like the NFBA, Tom Plummer's workshops,
Yep.
because there were owners there and we knew they were the ones that had the power to buy. They were the ones
Sure.
that made the decision. So that was sort of our full main reason of why we were at those seminars. But what I got out of it and what I learned from them is the power of people sharing ideas, or mainly not even sharing ideas, saving people money. I always say
Hmm.
to Mark, like, how much money have you saved gym owners? Like that, never
Yeah.
mind how much you made them. How much have you saved them? Because I'm sure that number is a lot more
Yep.
than you saved people money.
100%.
It's from making the mistakes that you made or the mistakes that
100%.
you've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you all incorporate the business stuff into your summits also, because even if people are personal trainers these days are tomorrow's gym owners,
Gym
right? And
owners,
so for them to
100%.
get exposed early, not just to the biomechanics and the importance of really quality coaching and training, but just the logistics of running a business and how important it is,
Yeah.
because they don't get to do their passion of training people if they don't have a solid business to work in. Right? If they don't have some really good business fundamentals, then all the passion for coaching people in the world is going to be useless because you can't keep the lights on. And so I love that you're exposing people, even trainers, early in their careers to the business side of stuff. I think is just so valuable.
Yeah. And we've seen that like around 2005 to 2010.
Hmm.
That was sort of the boom of the small studio, the small
Yeah.
2,000 to 4,000 square foot studio where it's exactly who you said it was. It was a trainer who was working in a gym for 5 years. His goal was to create his own business. He didn't have the money to do a 20,000 big box gym, but
Hmm.
wanted to do a small little studio. He had 30, 40 clients. Got another trainer and grew. That
Yeah,
was that
you
was our
just
main
you
part of the
yeah
business for a
you just
long
described
time.
Mark Fisher Fitness in 2011.
Yeah,
That was it. Mark been doing it for a little while. We came together, had maybe got our first space maybe 1,500 square feet, and we hired another trainer, another trainer, and we grew and grew and grew. But that was it. That was what a lot of it looked like back in 2010, 2011,
yeah.
2012. And I think that's still a lot of what we see in people coming listening to this podcast, coming to Unicorn Society. Is that's how a lot of the functional training gyms across around the world are starting. It's just by
Oh yes,
trainers who really want to do their own thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm glad we're both doing this work because they need help.
yes,
but
they do. I think.
Yeah. So let me ask you a little bit of question about you personally at this moment. So I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that Mark and I've been following you all for years, and I asked Mark before 'cause I knew I was recording today's podcast. I asked Mark, "What do you want me to ask Chris? What do you want me to ask him?" And he wanted to be very clear that you really have been such a role model for him for a long time. And one of the things he said was like, every time I've ever interacted with anyone at Perform Better, they're just the best. They're great people. They're fun to work with. They're competent. So what he wants to know from you is, this is a question passed on from Mark, is how do you think about leadership in your job at Perform Better? Because clearly you're hiring the right people. They seem really great at their jobs. They're awesome to work with. So we have to assume they have a great leader. So what's your approach to leadership?
Great people,
Yeah.
for one.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, Michael, I don't consider myself a great leader.
Mm,
I probably would consider myself more of a role model,
mm,
of how to treat people. So I think when your staff sees what you're doing, and sees the importance of it, I think they do exactly,
Yeah.
they do. And in the company here, we've developed and we've grown. And I know one of the next questions you're probably going to ask me is, what do you think that sets us apart from everyone else? And I know this is a very difficult question, but I truly believe it's our service, our team
Hmm.
and our service. We go above and beyond. We value the relationship with our customers. We don't look at a $10 minivan order as a down. Like that's it's we treat a $10 minivan as we do a $10,000 order of equipment. Just it's because we know this industry, people are going to always be buying back, and our staff knows if we're not treating the small orders as good as we're treating the big orders, then the small orders will never become a big order.
Yeah.
So it's everything to us is it's we're about relationships, and we're really about going above and beyond for service. That's really one of our callings, and I think that's more of it's something that doesn't have to be said. It's something that just gets followed from everybody.
Yeah. Well, your actions as a leader are loud, right? And you walking into a room with that energy and that attitude, and you leading by example by showing how to deliver great customer service, how to build great relationships. That is leading, whether you want to call it that or
Yeah.
not, right? People are learning from your example, which
Oh,
is
thanks.
incredible, right? I mean, I wish we had more leaders like that who had the humility to say, I'm not leading with my words, I'm leading with my actions by
Yeah.
hoping to show up every day and do my best work, which I think is fantastic. So good for you. I think that's a great way to think about leadership, honestly. Last question, because I want to be respectful of our time here. We got 5 more minutes here, and we talked about this a little bit, but I want to just kind of ask maybe formally. Since COVID, we've seen a lot of trends since COVID. A lot of gyms that closed during COVID slowly opening back up. A lot of things moved online are slowly shifting back to in person. Where do you think things are going in the next 3 to 5 years? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but when you look at the industry
Yeah.
from your perspective over there, where do you see things going?
It's funny. We have a presenter that's been presenting for us the last couple of years, Corey Smallwood, on AI
Hmm.
and the relevance of AI and a lot of train. I mean, I know we don't want to admit it in some of the things that AI can do, but AI is going to be a very, very powerful and
Strong
helpful
force.
tool.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tool for the trainer. It's not going to replace the trainer. Where it's going to replace the trainers, it's going to replace the online trainer.
Hmm.
That's it's in 5 years from now, there's going to be it's going to be cheap to get an online trainer with that basically is that's AI that's giving a
Yep.
great program, but they're not providing the service or the encouragement or so I think that the online trainer is going to have a difficult time in the future because they're going to be competing with AI. They're going to be
Hmm.
creating with all these AI bots and it's going to be a very difficult competition. But again, I think it's not going to be the only thing that'll be replaced inside the gym is maybe programming and using it as a tool for helping with marketing and other strategies and writing some copy and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Which
There's
we're
going to be
already
a lot
seeing.
of
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, there's going to see a lot of AI help there, but it's not. I don't believe it's going to replace the trainer on the floor.
Yeah, yeah. So AI is something to keep an eye on, keep something to leverage as a tool for all of you
Yeah,
gym owners out there and trainers to help you with your marketing, your messaging, your program design. And for people who are online trainers, I think it is going to be a powerful force for competition. So yeah, I agree with you there. So AI, something to look out for in the future. Any other trends? What do you think gym owners have to do out there to really separate themselves from the crowd in the future?
yeah. I think if you're a gym owner and you're not into a group, you're not
Hmm.
into a mastermind group.
Yeah.
I think you're missing something because everyone thinks they have all the answers and they can get themselves out of a jam here and there, but there's no better way than getting yourself out of a jam for somebody who's already or three or four people in a group that have already gotten themselves out of jam and they know
Yeah.
how to get out of that jam and the
We know
sharing of
that
those
jam. Yeah.
ideas. Yeah,
Yeah.
that jam and it's hey, you can get out of it cheap or you can get out of it very expensively.
Yeah.
Um, so I think like I said, if you're not part, if you're a gym, trainers are really good, but the train owners that become gym owners, they're not really good yet. They have to, what got them to be a good trainer, they have to work at being an owner. But the problem is that information, and that's why it's so vital to get
Yeah.
information from a group and from a program, a mastermind program, or a group of people that are there working with to help them on that. So I think you're going to see a lot more gyms. We're starting to see an influx right now. We're starting to see like we haven't seen in the last 3.5 years the trainer taking the leap of faith.
Yeah.
Meaning I want to get a facility. But in the last 6 months, Michael, we've seen quite a bit of that.
Yeah, 100%. We just launched a course about helping people open their first gym for that same
Yeah.
reason. We're seeing a lot of people ready to take the plunge. And there's
Yeah.
still in a lot of markets, a lot of commercial real estate that's still empty from COVID. Even New
Yeah.
York City, there's, I think it's something millions of square feet that are still commercially open and available. And so I think it is a moment where we're going to see a lot of people start small businesses. Yeah.
One hundred
Well,
percent.
yeah, this has been a great conversation, Chris Poirier. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your time. I'm sure I'll have you back on the podcast again soon to talk about the things you have coming up. If people want to get involved with Perform Better and buy some of your equipment, where do they find you all on the internet?
They can find us at performbetter.com. They can email me anytime they want at chris.poirier@performbetter.com, or they can
Awesome.
call anytime at 800-556-7464.
I love it. We'll put all those things down below in the show notes, friends. Go check out Perform Better. And as they start to announce their next season of summits, take a look, put them on your calendar, and hopefully we'll see you there because we'll be there. Awesome.
Perfect.
Thanks so much for your time, Chris. And dear listeners, I'll see you on the next one. Have a kick-ass day.
Thanks, Michael.